And good evening. Thanks for staying with us for News 3 Now at 5.
We're expecting extreme cold in just a few hours that will extend through the weekend, and many districts have already canceled school for tomorrow. Some cities are expanding warming shelters and overnight shelter hours.
We'll get to all of that in a moment, but we're starting right away with exactly what to expect and when.
That's right. We have team coverage. Our Tanisha Shaw is out tonight with the direct impacts the cold may have, and meteorologist Blaze Keller is in the studio tracking the dangerous temperatures.
And we'll start there with Blaze. Where do things stand right now?
Well, we are looking at some of the coldest air just off to our north in Brainerd, Fargo, Superior, Morris, where those wind chill values are starting to get to about 40 to 45 degrees below. La Crosse will take it in closer to home. It is 11 degrees below zero, feeling like in Lone Rock, 16 below zero in Camp Douglas, 12 below in Watoma. Everybody else has begun to slip into those single digits below zero. And that cold air, it is moving on in right now across parts of Minnesota, but by the time we go overnight into those morning hours on Friday, that is when, especially between I would say 5 and 8 o'clock, when it may feel as cold as 45 degrees below zero, which with those conditions, frostbite or hypothermia could set in within as little as 10 minutes, which is why we have that extreme cold warning still in effect until 1 p.m. on Friday. After that, the cold weather advisory is sticking around through the end of the weekend, because even though we'll warm above zero by Saturday and Sunday, it is still going to be very cold in terms of temperatures, and those wind chill values still about 25 to 30 degrees below zero both Saturday and Sunday morning. Is there any relief in sight? We will take a look at that and more coming up in the full forecast, as well as talk more in depth about this latest blast of cold air. That's coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Blaze, thank you. Here's a look at some of the most impactful school closures tomorrow. The Madison School District says its school, early childhood, and 4K programming are all canceled. All after-school activities are canceled as well. The school districts of Mount Horeb, Verona, Sun Prairie, and Dodgeville, among many others that will be closed tomorrow as well.
And you can find a full list of those closures online at channel3000.com. You can also find it on our Channel 3000 mobile app, which sends notifications directly to your device. You can download it now for free in your app store.
Well, in anticipation of the cold, a lot of businesses and a lot of nonprofits are also closing their doors tomorrow.
And that includes meal services that help seniors, leaving those in need without their expected meal. Our Tanisha Shaw talked to the organizers of Meals on Wheels. And Tanisha, they told you this is really their last resort, right?
Hi, Eric and Susan. Yes, they told me that this is a last resort. Meals on Wheels is ran by SSM Health, and they didn't want to close on Friday. But this cold, bitter temperatures that I'm experiencing right now, they said they didn't want their seniors to experience that, and they did not want them at risk. Thankfully, they have organized a solution to days like this, and they call this a blizzard meal. They were able to send those meals out ahead of time, and they are made of non-perishable food items instead of the fresh cooked food that the clients usually receive Monday through Friday. Brian Kelly from SSM Health told me that preparing ahead of time for cold days like this is essential for those that are vulnerable.
Some of our volunteers, we range from young to older population too, so we have to be careful for our own volunteers. And, when it gets unsafe, it's just simply, you just don't want to go outside. You need to stay inside and be safe.
Kelly also told me that they had to close tomorrow because they want to keep their volunteers safe. Their volunteers are going door to door to talk to the seniors to make sure not only that they get their food, but that they are okay. But Meals on Wheels does plan to open back up on Monday. Reporting on Madison's West Side, Tanisha Shaw, News 3 Now.
All right, Tanisha, thank you. Public health officials in Madison are urging everybody to take extra precautions tomorrow.
Now, last winter, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services reported 103 cold-related deaths. The weekend's conditions are particularly risky for the elderly, disabled, and people who don't have consistent access to heat. Local shelters have temporarily dropped overnight capacity limits to make sure everyone has a warm place to sleep.
Public health officials also want everyone to know the signs of frostbite and and hypothermia. The warning signs include shivering, exhaustion, confusion, or slurred speech, mimicking intoxication. And anyone who is outside and exhibits those symptoms should get help immediately. Frostbite can set in within minutes in these temperatures. At the first signs of redness or pain, get out of the cold and protect any exposed skin. That could be an early sign of frostbite.
And with more people using their fireplaces, furnaces, and portable generators to keep warm, the risk of carbon monoxide sickness is particularly dangerous. Every year in the U.S., unintentional carbon monoxide poisoning sends more than 100,000 people to the emergency room, hospitalizes more than 14,000 people, and kills more than 400. Because carbon monoxide exposure can mimic cold and flu symptoms, there's an added challenge in identifying when it's the reason someone is feeling sick. The most common signs: headache, dizziness, weakness, upset stomach, chest pain, and confusion.
If you have multiple family members, everyone in the home has all the same symptoms, it may be that carbon monoxide is the common denominator as to why everyone doesn't feel good.
And of course, it's important to have a backup carbon monoxide detector in your home near every sleeping area.
That's not the only risk you should be aware of. The Madison Fire Department is asking everyone to be cautious, trying to find alternative ways to stay warm. Space heaters can help, but they do come with a risk. Older space heaters have fewer safety features. Madison Fire suggests that people only use newer ones. The more updated ones can detect when something is inside the vent and will get cooler if it's tipped over. Firefighters also respond to homes that try to get heat from candles or from a stove. Neither should be used to retain heat.
You never want to use an alternative source of heat if all possible. Like you were talking about with the stoves, electric stoves can get quite hot. You can have issues if you have pets or kids. Somebody can get in there, get burned, or something can happen with that. But they definitely create a problem where they only heat up a small area anyway. So everybody's kind of congregated together, and again, that's when it can bring in some of the pets and the kids to play with it. And you really want to make sure that that is not your first option.
Madison Fire is also encouraging us to check on our neighbors, make sure they're okay, especially if they're a single parent, elderly, or someone with special needs.
And there are several warming centers available to those who don't have access to heat. The Lutheran Church of Peace in Platteville will take people in overnight tonight from 8 p.m. until 10 a.m. tomorrow. City's police department will be serving as a warming center all day, every day, Friday through Sunday. And in Middleton, the police department lobby, that's on Donna Drive. It'll be open as a warming center 24 hours a day. You can find more available warming centers in Middleton at this story that we have linked at channel3000.com.
And as always, you can track the forecast for yourself on the First Warn Weather app. It has hourly planners, road conditions, and radar. You can download it for free in your phone's app store. Just search WISC Weather.
Now to the story of a man who submerged a stolen vehicle in Monona Bay earlier this morning in frigid temperatures.
That manhunt continues tonight, and our Nash Dara is here to share more. Nash?
Eric and Susan, a crazy story is still unfolding from today. Here is a previous mugshot of that identified individual, 55-year-old Derek Newton, who earlier this morning police say committed an armed carjacking, where he then submerged the vehicle around 125 yards offshore in the Monona Bay. We're now going to walk over here to our 3x3 monitor to get a better look of how these events played out from earlier this morning. This is a map of the scene. We first look in retrospect to the Capitol, where we then head a few blocks southwest to the Unity Point Health Meriter Hospital. This is where everything started early this morning at 6:10 a.m. when Newton's stolen SUV then drove just a couple of streets away as we follow the map transitioning to here, the Monona Bay and Brittingham Park, where he drove on the ice, where the vehicle then fell through. Following the carjacking, the hospital then went into lockdown due to the suspect being believed to have a knife and a gun while remaining a threat to the general public. Since, the hospital has been in a heightened awareness status as they continue to monitor and investigate. At the scene on the ice, fire crew and police units responded promptly. Divers went underwater to identify the vehicle, where it was then confirmed no one was still in the SUV.
A lot of the resources in the Brittingham area, I think, have dissipated at this point. So, no, I don't believe. We still have officers in the 200 block of South Park and the general vicinity that will be assigned to this for quite a while. But there are no active dog tracks right now. There's no active sightings and such.
Captain Daniel Nail also said the active investigation continues to find the identified individual, who police are still considering to be armed and dangerous. We will keep you updated with information on the story and continue coverage as more details emerge. But as of now, the search for Derek Newton continues.
Nash, thank you. Still ahead tonight at 5, we continue our coverage of the dangerous cold that's on the way.
And whether there's any truth to a viral post on social media claiming the weather could make trees explode.
Plus, Blaze is back with a full breakdown of the first warn forecast, how cold it will get this weekend, and when we could all see some relief.
And on Wall Street today, a second consecutive day of strong gains. The Dow Jones jumping 307 points. NASDAQ up more than 211. S&P
now at 5.
All right, there's a viral post that has everybody looking up at the trees.
Yep, you've probably seen it. It's everywhere on social media. It says that trees could explode tomorrow because of the cold weather. So is that true? Our Tanasia Shaw spoke with our plant expert from the Bruce Company, Lisa Briggs, to get the answer. Tanasia, true or false?
Okay, Eric and Susan, yes, the trees will explode, but it's not in the way that you may think. Now, when you hear the word exploding, we're thinking about a tree in its branches going up into the air into a million pieces. Let me tell you, that is just not the case. As you said, I spoke to Lisa Briggs from Bruce Company, and she says that trees exploding is natural, and it actually happens all the time in winter when we have these temperature drops like we're experiencing now. Here in the Midwest, we actually call this frost cracking. It's when a tree is damaged because of a sudden drop of temperatures. Briggs says it's so common that we actually see it all the time, and you might not even have known if you were to see it on a tree. And while it's not as rare or bizarre as a tree blowing up like a bomb, sometimes there is a sound associated with it.
Trees are not really exploding. It's not like your tree is going to turn into a toothpick factory. Now, I have heard, I've never heard it myself, but it can make a sound that's very loud. I've heard it called a gunshot sound. I've heard it called a large cracking sound. But it's not that the tree is coming apart. It's just developing a wound.
The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources also commented on this, and they said the same exact thing as Lisa Briggs. And they also said that if homeowners notice that frost crackling and that they see a damaged branch or anything like that, that they should have it inspected. Reporting in Madison, Tanasia Shaw, News 3 Now.
All right, Tanasia, good to know. Don't go out and wrap your trees in blankets or anything like that. It's just natural. It'll happen. All right, so now we have all that figured out. Let's get some details on just how cold it'll get. And here's Blaze with more details.
That's right. It is going to be some of our coldest air in probably over a year. We are looking at overnight lows to get to about 15 to 20 degrees below zero. Underneath partly cloudy to mostly clear conditions, breezy northwesterly winds, and fresh snow. We have the making for these cold wind chill values. Not to mention, this air has been making its way from northern parts of Russia, the Siberian Sea, and is now going to be overhead as we go overnight into the start of Friday. And again, that's when we are expecting the coldest of the cold air. Wind chill values could be as cold as 45 degrees below zero waking up on Friday, which is why we still have this extreme cold warning. We don't get this too often. Yes, winter is cold, but we don't get 40 to 50 degree wind chill values below zero that often. I think it's about 10% at its greatest over the entire winter, over many, many years that we've experienced these cold wind chill values, 10% of all of our winters. So we don't experience this a lot, which is why it has been advised to stay indoors. If you have to go outside, though, dress appropriately, cover up as much skin as possible, because with these cold wind chill values, frostbite can sit in within 10 minutes. We're not the only ones who are dealing with this winter weather. These are all of our winter weather alerts across the United States, essentially stretching from the U.S.-Canadian border all the way down to the U.S.-Mexico border. We've got cold weather warnings, cold weather advisories, winter storm warnings, ice storm warnings across lower portions of the Mississippi River Valley, as they're going to be dealing with some of this cold as a low pressure system develops there off of Texas and brings some ice, some snow, as well as some rain. We might get a little bit of snow from that, say Sunday, but we are certainly not going to get the heavy snow or that debilitating ice. Again, all this cold air coming from the Siberian Sea back on the 15th is where this air mass originated from, and it took more or less this red path, kind of circling over the Hudson Bay, and now as we go overnight into Friday, it will be overhead. So watch as those cold wind chill values dip to about 40 to 45 degrees below zero. Some spots could be inching close to 50 degrees below zero as we're waking up between 5 and about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Even as we head into the afternoon hours, still feeling 25 to 30 degrees below zero. This is about 24 hours from now, Friday at 4 p.m. We start to ease out of this cold air as we head into the weekend. But a reminder that cold weather advisory sticking around through Sunday, because not only is it still going to be cold air temperature wise, but our wind chill values are still going to be about 20 to 25 degrees below zero both Saturday and Sunday morning. We're expecting to remain below zero on Friday, but at least it's going to be sunny. So if you do have to be outside again, unless you absolutely have to, please cover up as much as possible. We'll be close to our coldest high temperature recorded on January 22nd, set both in 1936 and then 1963 of 9 degrees below zero. We'll see if we can get there. Maybe we'll set a new record, who knows. Otherwise, the cold air is on out of here by about Tuesday of next week. We're back into those double digits, but we are still going to remain below average over the next 7 to 10 days with little to no snow chances. So the ice will thicken up. I guess that's a silver lining there. And folks, I don't personally think that this weather pattern breakdown is going to end until probably the mid-February time frame. So we've got a while to go before we start to really warm on up.
All right, records we do not want to break, but nonetheless, be safe out there, folks. Tonight on News 3 Now at 10, a local bride is warning brides-to-be to double-check ownership when it comes to their wedding venue.
This after some major complications throughout the wedding and planning process. Multiple reports of unhappy brides are coming after a change in ownership at Over the Vines Vineyard and Wedding Venue in Edgerton. Months after her wedding, one bride reached out to call for action following a drop in communication and not receiving her damage deposit back, despite the contract stating a return within 14 days. Communication was another complication.
I just don't want what happened to us happen to other brides, because, you spend tens of thousands, you have dreams of your wedding, and for this to happen, it's truly upsetting.
Consumer reporter Michelle Renee Quinn brings the full wedding contract clash and what management had to say about it. Did the brides ever get their deposits back? Tune in and find out tonight on News 3 Now at 10. But up next at 5, after more than a month without Wisconsin's version of C-SPAN, lawmakers are looking for a solution. What's in the bipartisan proposal from the Assembly that could bring Wisconsin?
Watching News 3 Now at 5.
And we take a live look right now. This is Ely, Minnesota, way up north near the Canadian border. The cold air there heading our way right now. Negative 18 degrees there, and an extreme cold warning. And Blaze will join us with the latest on when we can expect those dangerously cold temperatures a little later on News 3 Now at 5.
Looks cold. At the Capitol, patients, reproductive rights advocates, and a senator gathered for what would have been the 53rd anniversary of Roe v. Wade. The landmark ruling was overturned in 2022, ending the constitutional right to an abortion. In the aftermath, Wisconsin's 19th century law went into effect for 15 months. The state Supreme Court ultimately decided the 1849 law could not prevent Wisconsinites from getting abortions, but since reproductive rights still face hurdles. Today we heard from a woman who had an abortion before Roe about the impact.
And today I'm speaking for the women who did not survive unsafe attempts to end their pregnancies. I'm a lucky one who survived. I know for certain that women will suffer so long as politicians interfere with making their own private medical decisions.
The state Supreme Court has not ruled whether the Wisconsin Constitution guarantees the right to an abortion, setting up a potential debate in the future.
It's been more than a month now since WisI, or Wisconsin's version of C-SPAN, went dark due to lack of funding. And while WisI's GoFundMe is raising the money it needs to continue doing its operations, day-to-day happenings at the Capitol have become less transparent. But in an act of bipartisanship today, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos and Minority Leader Greta Neubauer proposed a compromise. The bipartisan bill from the Assembly would fund WISI through a trust fund while also requiring WISI to do some of its own fundraising.
This is a really good start. It's very important for the public to have access, and so we're optimistic that we're going to reach a bipartisan solution here soon.
Our intention is to also sign a short-term contract with Wisconsin Eye to broadcast our February floor period.
The state Senate is still working through the details of the plan.
Wisconsin's most recent unemployment data is out. The Department of Workforce Development saying the information is finally back up to date after being affected by the federal government shutdown last year. Over the year, Wisconsin's unemployment went down by over 65,000, but the rate of working age people who are working or looking for work went up in December and is nearly 2% above the national rate. The seasonably adjusted unemployment rate held steady and is more than 1 percentage point below the national rate.
And in some national news, agents with the Department of Homeland Security arrested people they allege were part of anti-ICE protests disrupting a church service on Sunday. Protesters claiming one of the pastors there leads the local field office. While in Minneapolis on Thursday, the vice president said the administration is going to go after those protests, quote, with every single tool it has. All of this as ICE officials defend a memo showing agents are forcing their way into people's homes without search warrants.
Stay with us. Blaze will take a final check of the alert.
Tonight on News 3 Now at 6, we continue to follow alert day conditions settling in overnight with team coverage, how to prepare yourself and your home for the dangerously cold weather that's coming up. More on that in a half hour on News 3 Now at 6. We want to pass along UW has now canceled all labs, lectures, and classes for tomorrow due to the cold. It's just classrooms. If you have any questions, contact your instructor for those classes, they're saying, but it's just classes. All other activities, they're saying, will go on as planned.
Boy, that's rare, Blaze. That explains how serious it is.
Yeah, I mean, we really don't get this type of cold. When looking at all the data through the years, I think maybe 10% of all of our winters we've experienced a little bit of this cold. So we don't get it that often, which is why we have that extreme cold warning until Friday at 1 p.m. Already starting to get close to 20 below zero. Viroqua, Camp Douglas, the Dells, and La Crosse. That is going to be moving on eastward as we head overnight. Expect morning wind chills to be about 40 to 45 degrees below zero.
All right, Blaze, thank you. Thanks for watching at 5, everybody.
We'll be back in 30 minutes for News 3 Now at 6.